Hi everyone, my name is Kelly Evans. I'm Executive Director at Neighbor to Neighbor. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Thank you for giving your time. I'm still wearing my coat even though we're cozy in our own homes. Again, thank you for your consideration of others, especially during this time of year. We can always count on Plymouth to be thinking outside of your own bubbles, and the difference you've made has been really tremendous in our community neighbors' lives. This year, we've seen obviously just incredible magnitude of need for stable housing. We always have folks who struggle to stay stably housed in Fort Collins because our housing market is so challenging. This year, it's really been off the charts, as you can imagine. In a typical year, Neighbor to Neighbor would provide about $225,000 in emergency assistance during the course of the entire year. In the last 6 months, we've distributed over $1 million, and we'll hit $2 million by the end of 2020 very easily. And that is thanks to the support of our community. We have a lot of families struggling because they've lost jobs, their kids are home, so maybe they aren't able to return to jobs. Some people have gotten sick and are needing to quarantine for a certain amount of time before they can go back. We have a lot of different scenarios playing out in our communities in northern Colorado, and it's a blessing to be part of the solution for people so that they don't lose their homes on top of those challenges. In a typical year, our housing market in northern Colorado causes significant stress for local families. This year has certainly magnified that stress. We have a high number of people in our communities that work in the service industry. They've been hit especially hard. As we all go out to dinner outside as much as we can and feel safe, we still see that those restaurants are at half capacity, if that. So this duration of this pandemic is really hitting them so hard because their revenue for their household is not back to normal levels. Every year I watch out for a report called the Out of Reach Study, which tells us how much money a household needs to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment in our county. In Larimer County, a household needs to earn $24.10 an hour to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment. So we can understand how so many families, A, don't earn $24.10 an hour, and then when something happens that's unexpected, they get pushed to the brink and very likely face eviction when one unexpected emergency comes up. So I'd like to share the words from one of the 2,000 families that we have assisted in the last 6 months. She says, "Before I received Neighbor to Neighbor assistance, we were having to make the decision between food or our rent payment. The assistance we received helped my family get through a financial crisis that more than likely would have resulted in my family being homeless. Thank you." And thank you to each of you for being here and participating and for your support.
The Sleepout's had a significant impact on my life. I've been on the planning committee for 3 years now, so that has definitely influenced my decision to go work nonprofit with issues like homelessness in the future. And it's also given me a lot of leadership skills and working with some amazing people, which has been pretty awesome. And it's a lot of life experience and realizing that you have a lot more than some people do, and you shouldn't take that for granted because sometimes just like one thing can happen, like you get the flu and you have a giant medical bill and you can lose your home. So you just have to realize that that's the reality for some people, and that really can affect the way you look at the world and how you interact with people.
The Sleepout has impacted my life in a lot of different ways. I think firstly, being part of the planning committee, I've learned a lot about leadership skills, working with different people, getting people motivated and involved in an event, and how to rally people behind something that you're passionate about and something that's a good cause. And of course, I've just learned so much about the state of homelessness in this community in Fort Collins. I think a lot of people think about homelessness on a large scale and don't really remember that it's an issue that's really close to home. And so that's one of the ways that the Sleepout has really impacted my life, is just keeping me, reminding me that this is a problem that's, right in our backyard, that homelessness is very close to home.
The Plymouth Sleepout has an incredible impact in the community. In 2018, over 50 families were able to escape homelessness just because of the funds raised at the Sleepout. And it really also has a great domino effect of opening the door to having conversations about housing affordability, systemic poverty, wages, and a whole lot of other things that are really important to our community and can make our community a better place to live for everyone.
Good evening. I'm very delighted to be here again, even though it's in a strange way compared to the ways we've done it in the past. What I'd like to do tonight is talk about the importance of staying with a social issue over the long term. And that's what I feel that Plymouth congregation, the teenagers, the staff, the pastor, the parents have done over the years is been there like a steady rock saying, this is important, you need to look at it. We are in solidarity with the people who cannot have a place to live. We think it's important, and we've been doing this for over 15 years. I think that's commendable. And that's the kind of dedication that we need. I'm glad you're finding a way to do it this year when we've got a virus that's keeping people segregated. Just think of what this virus has done for the homeless. If we didn't have people who were really concerned about preventing homelessness as well as helping those who are currently homeless, we would be in very bad shape as a city. So it's the continued commitment of young people, elders, people in between. We need everybody to be concerned about this issue. And with this important year of voting too, I hope that when people go to vote, they think not just of themselves, but what about the people who are barely making it or who are on the streets. So what I'd like to do this year, instead of talking about the homeless, is to talk about the fact that it's so important that people over the long haul stay committed to an issue where many of our brothers and sisters are suffering. So Plymouth stands high in my esteem as far as being committed to the fact that we still have the problem. But I think I'd like to also say to you, what if over the years we hadn't been working on this problem? It would be overwhelming with COVID. So because we've tried our best to prevent it, to help the people who are in fact homeless, to help those who are homeless get into housing that they can afford, that latter part is the biggest issue right now, is we do not have enough affordable housing for people to move into. So pray that our legislators, our city and county leaders see the need for more affordable housing so that people don't have to be on the streets, especially families with children. I was talking to the head of Catholic Charities, and they are taking women, children, and families and helping them overnight. And the Fort Collins Rescue Mission is working with the men. But what surprised me, and I should have thought of it myself, was when the director of Catholic Charities said, we have children who can't go to school. Our staff is equipped to helping people who are homeless, but it's another whole thing to make sure that the children are getting the education that they need, so that this virus has caused the problems for the homeless and the providers of service, and the need to prevent more people from becoming homeless. All of that is part of our package. So I just want to commend you for continuing to keep at the issue and not giving up. It's easy to do something one or two times, but it's another thing to do it over a 15-year span. So I really hope that you'll continue. I'm glad you're not giving up. I think it's wonderful that you found a way to do it. And just know that I'm with you 100%. And God bless each and every person who's trying to help.
Hi, my name's Noah Harrison, and I participated in the Sleepout all 4 years that I was in high school, and I served on the planning committee for 2 of those years. I'm currently a first-year law student, and I just graduated from college this past May. In college, I majored in public policy, and one of the areas of policy that I focused in during the course of my study was poverty alleviation. And I really credit the Sleepout for helping to develop my interests in public policy and educate me about the real and important effects that policy can have on those people who are homeless and those who are housing insecure. While some of the more tangible successes of the Sleepout, I think, are the money that it raises to help combat homelessness, and then, of course, the awareness that it generates. I think that one of the more underrated but still critically important aspects is the impact that it has on the high school students who participate. And I think that impact is less tied to the actual just experience of sleeping outside, because let's be frank, sleeping outside for one night is just not possible to imprint the level of empathy that one needs to truly understand what it's like to be homeless. But I think the impact is more tied to the wide array of lessons that it imprints on participants. So lessons such as learning how policy and activism and social justice are intertwined and interconnected, learning about the complexities of the issue of homelessness, because it's not a simple issue, it doesn't have simple policy solutions. Lessons such as demonstrating the possibility of making a difference through activism and policy reform. As I mentioned earlier, my experiences with the Sleepout were a significant influence in my decision to pursue a degree specifically in public policy, a degree that was cemented in finding pragmatic, empirical evidence-based policy solutions to complex problems. And while I'm still in law school right now, I hope to in the near future be building a career in policy making and implementing meaningful policy reform. So I hope that this year's Sleepout goes well, and my big congratulations to this year's organizers for the creativity and willpower that I'm sure that took to adapt this year's Sleepout to the current state of the world. Big thank you to all of you guys for supporting an event that does so much good, but also has such a meaningful impact on the young people who participate. Thank you.
Well, this event is important for a number of reasons. First, it's really important for students, especially in high school, to kind of get that experience of like, hey, my life's not like their life. How does this change the way that I view the world, and how am I going to like proceed in my life to ensure that this world's going to be a bit of a better place? It's really overall super important for education. It also does act as a bonding experience for the youth at the event. If you've slept outside in a cardboard box in December, you kind of bond with the person in the box next to you.
I think the Sleepout is a very important event because it does multiple things. Of course, we raise a lot of money to help the issue of homelessness, and we also raise a lot, or get a lot of gear for people out there, like coats and hats and things, but it also raises awareness, which is honestly the most important part of it, because a lot of people don't realize that we have an increasing problem of homelessness in our community. And when you see teenagers sleeping on boxes on the side of a road, you're going to be like, that's the reality for a lot of people, and people their age too, because there's like 2,000 homeless children in the Poudre School District. So it's very important for people around us in our community and for the people experiencing it, because when you go to the Sleepout, you're experiencing that for a night, and then you take that experience with you for the rest of your life.
I think that this event is one of the most important things that our church does for the youth, because not only does it bring our community together, it brings outside people in our community and our church community over this kind of issue that is ignored in society. And I think it's incredibly important for our youth, especially in high school, when they're going through this age of figuring out who they are and also just learning about the world, to see this impact in their community and to be able to have these adults that come in and talk to us and tell us about it and help us understand what's truly happening without us getting kind of false information from the media or news or just what we've been told throughout life. And so it's like, I think it's almost one of the most important things that youth can go through with our church, to give them that enlightenment and that kind of knowledge that we would never get outside of our church community.
Hello everyone, my name is John Kafalis. I am the Larimer County Commissioner, District 1. I'm very pleased that Plymouth Congregational Church, and especially the youth, are organizing this Homeless Awareness Vigil. It's an annual thing. Folks have consistently organized this, and it's been a very effective way to raise awareness and certainly to raise funds to help address homelessness, and certainly to focus on homelessness prevention. So I'm really happy that you folks invited me to be here again. The question that was posed to me in terms of this recording, and we're actually doing this 2 months ahead of when the actual vigil will occur, and I must say it is a bit warmer this afternoon, so I'm okay with that. But the question that was posed to me is, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected homelessness in Larimer County? And I did we prepared some highlights, and I'd like to share that with you, and I hope this is helpful in terms of the discussions, the work that needs to be done moving forward together as a community. But since COVID-19 started, Neighbor to Neighbor has reported a 2,000% increase in demand from residents trying to avoid eviction. Other local providers are seeing significant increases in demand for both rental and utility assistance during this time. So there's been an incredibly dramatic increase in the need for rental assistance and to make sure that folks weren't getting evicted from their homes. In Larimer County, the COVID-19 pandemic began March 9th, so we've been in this together at least for the last 7 months. When Larimer County issued public health orders requiring that gatherings would be limited to 10 or less people and that they be 6 feet apart at all times, the homeless shelter network was significantly impacted. Public health did not modify the order for these providers to allow for more than 10 people in their facilities, but they modified that so more people could be in there, but did not waive the 6 foot distance requirement. The end result in terms of the impact on homelessness shelters, and we have the Fort Collins Rescue Mission and the Catholic Charities Mission, but the end result is that in our provider network, their capacity diminished on average by 50%. Without the use of the North Side Azatlan Community Center as an overflow shelter space for single men, nearly 100 individuals would have been without shelter between March and June of 2020. So that was a significant thing then, and much credit to the city of Fort Collins for stepping up to provide the North Side Azatlan Center as a place for men to be housed in the evenings. A third point that I wish to make is quarantine isolation orders, which are legally binding to individuals to whom they are issued, became nearly impossible for persons experiencing homelessness to comply with. The Health District of Northern Larimer County, along with the Homeless Services Provider Network, established an isolation site during this time to separate high-risk and ill individuals from the larger homeless population. Larimer County, we also established an isolation site for COVID-positive persons experiencing homelessness in one of our office buildings on Blue Spruce Drive for 2 months. Fourth, the 6 foot distancing and the limits on how many people may be gathered in any one place has indeed highlighted the need for day services for folks experiencing homelessness. The Murphy Center can no longer serve the same number of people during daytime hours with these public health concerns. This gap, of course, will become more critical as we move into the winter weather, when people experiencing homelessness not only need to access services during daytime hours, but they need to have a place to get warm. And that's a critical issue that we're still trying to resolve at this time, this being October October 10th. Some additional points that I wish to add is the Larimer Recovery Collaborative, which Larimer County convened, has a community support focus area that includes housing and homelessness objectives. We are currently reviewing drafts of the Unmet Needs Study, which will highlight the pre-COVID status of these issues, how the pandemic affected the persons experiencing homelessness population, and how we can use this opportunity to have a new normal be an improvement to the entire system for housing and homelessness. Several governmental sources of emergency funding, including CSBG, which is Community Services Block Grants, CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, and the CARES Act funding, have been distributed to service providers across Larimer County to help with housing homeless issues. Among Larimer County, City of Loveland, and the City of Fort Collins, approximately $1.9 million has been distributed for rental and utility assistance, and another $500,000 has been directly routed to assist homeless service providers. So there's been a significant amount of dollars invested to try to address people who are experiencing homelessness and to prevent folks from being homeless. Earlier I mentioned the 2,000% increase in terms of the services that Neighbor to Neighbor provides. A chunk of their money has come from some of these dollars. On the positive side, we need to kind of move on to how we move forward. One example of how COVID-19 has provided an opportunity is the establishment of non-congregational sheltering in hotels for a high-risk persons experiencing homelessness, which has never been a FEMA-eligible expense. Providing this kind of housing for 65 plus and health compromised people experiencing homelessness offers consistent safety, a relief of pressures on the traditional shelter network, and gives some consistent case management to hopefully have these individuals secure permanent housing upon exiting from the non-congregate shelter. So we've had the ability to house people who are at greater risk in hotel rooms, and again, it's been a collaborative effort. Finally, I'd like to say that another bright spot is that this public health crisis has renewed a focus on the community-wide need, to solve homelessness, not just a social issue, but clearly at this time a public well-being, public health issue for us all. So those are some highlights in response to the question, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted homelessness in Larimer County, housing? And of course, we know that this thing has not gone away. The indicators that the data that we have in Larimer County indicates that we are seeing increases in positive cases, and also we know that whatever assistance people got to help pay their rent, that's no longer there in terms of supplemental unemployment insurance and all these other things. And so we need to be prepared for come the beginning of 2021 if there are a lot more folks in need. But I think ultimately I want to leave folks with the fact that we're all in this together. I've said that time and time again. The work that Plymouth Congregational Church does, the young people, the youth do to put this on. I forget how many years it's been, at least 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years. And I'm just really happy that folks keep inviting me back. I hope this information is helpful. I sort of miss, not entirely, sleeping in a cardboard box like we did last year, but I understand that young people will be sleeping outside at their homes, and there'll be some kind of a drive-by vigil thing. You guys can work out the logistics. But especially if the young people prompt me and prod me a little bit, encourage me, support me, maybe I could sleep out. I don't have time to build a box, but either someone could build a box for me, or I'll just sleep under the stars or in my tent. Thank you.
I think that this event is really important because it's an opportunity for young people to learn how to serve and how to have a mindset that's larger than their own circle. Because this event is run by youth and a lot of its participants are youth, they get to see from a really early age what's important in life, and that is service and selflessness. And so this is a really great opportunity for young people to start their faith journeys and their whole lives on the right path by serving.
I've learned so many things, but I think one of the most important things I've learned is how large of an issue homelessness is in Fort Collins. I kind of knew about that somewhat through school, but I never really realized how big it was impacted in our own society. When you go other places, you see a lot more like beggars on the street, and you really see that. But here, there's only a few places where we see that. And there's so many more people who are impacted by homelessness. And I really learned how homelessness, so many people, it's not what you think it is. You know, we kind of think of homelessness as the beggars we see on the street and the people living like that. But so many people are homeless who have to work jobs and who have to go to school and who have to keep up appearances. And they hide that fact, and they can't really be seen on the streets begging and things like that. But there's so much more homelessness behind what we think. And I think that was like one of the biggest things I've learned, is that so many people are homeless, and they might be homeless in a way that they're sleeping on other people's couches, or they're in and out of shelters and things like that. They aren't, and they don't seem like somebody who I would think is homeless if I ever saw them.
Hi guys, my name is Eva, and I have been at Plymouth for pretty much my whole life. I participated in the Sleepout from about 7th grade all the way through high school, and I think the most significant thing it has done for my life has just been to give me a perspective on how some people live their lives every day. And most of us take for granted that we have a house and a bed and a life that we can come home to and be comfortable and warm and cozy. And it gets cold here, and I don't think we realize just how many people don't have access to those things. And I think the Sleepout has really given me a whole new perspective and appreciation for how a lot of people live their lives by chance or by choice, or just by a stroke of unfortunate luck. And so I remember one time, I think I was a sophomore in high school, we did like a homelessness simulation of some sort, and I think that really left a lasting impact on my mentality and how I view people that are homeless and how I view the world. And I think especially now with the virus and how everyone has had to change how they live, I think now it's even more important to have a more open, a greater perspective on how different people live their lives differently from us. And I think the Sleepout is a really great way to do that and appreciate that. And big shout out to all the people, Bob, and all of the people that have been involved with this. We really appreciate you, and you make a difference in our lives and the lives of people that we come into contact with for the rest of our own lives. So thank you, and guys, have so much fun, and I'll just see you guys around. Good luck with everything.
Hi everyone, this is Matt Desmond, author of Evicted. Just coming to you with a sense of solidarity and gratitude for your participation tonight in this vigil. You know, America has grown quite used to homelessness among its midst. You know, there's more homeless kids today in New York City in the school system than there are people living in Green Bay, Wisconsin, for example. And one of the causes of homelessness is this housing crisis that we've been in for years and years. And this crisis has three big ingredients. You know, incomes for many Americans have been flat over the last several decades, but housing costs have soared. Median rent has doubled over the last 20 years. The median rent in America now is about $1,000. And so for many American families, there's been this shrinking gap between what families are bringing in and what they have to pay for basic roof over their head necessities. And then we might ask ourselves, well, where's the federal government here? What about public housing? And the answer is the federal government does help, but it only helps a minority of families that need that help. So only about 1 in 6 families that qualify for any kind of housing assistance, things like public housing or a voucher that reduces your rent burden, only about 1 in 6 of those families that qualify for housing assistance receive it. And the unlucky majority receive nothing. The waiting list for our public housing in our big cities isn't counted in years anymore, it's counted in decades. So I have 2 young kids. If I applied for public housing today in Washington, D.C., I'd be a grandfather by the time my application came up for review. So that's the state of our housing crisis. And that means that most renting families below the poverty line now spend over half of their income on housing costs, and about 1 in 4 of those families spend over 70% of their income just on rent and utilities. And that means we've moved from a place where eviction used to be rare in America, used to draw crowds, to a place where eviction is incredibly commonplace. And many families have grown used to, the effects of people's things on the ground and that early morning rap by the sheriff on the door. 3.7 million evictions are filed every year in the United States. It's about 7 evictions filed every single minute. Homelessness is a product of eviction. In many cities, eviction is the leading cause of homelessness. This is something that is morally intolerable. This is something that is economically unnecessary. And for that reason, we should be both ashamed by the level of homelessness in America and hopeful. This problem hasn't been always this bad, and it doesn't need to continue being so. There are solutions within our reach, but we have to reach. And I think we have a responsibility to do so. It's not a personal responsibility so much, but a civic responsibility. Personal responsibility is about our connection to the problem. A civic responsibility is our power, our connection to the solution. So when the levee breaks and flood waters come rushing through your town, it's not the levee that has your name on it. It's the sandbag. And so I thank you all for showing up tonight. Thank you for inviting me to join you, however, virtually in this new time of pandemic. And I just hope that many of you more and more continue just to hate poverty and hate homelessness and hate how it steals life and health and hope. And that you, in your own way, find a way to defend the rights of the powerless and to reach out to those who often are ignored by those in power. So thank you so much, y'all. Have a good night.
Hi everyone, my name is Joe Neguse, and I am so honored to represent Colorado's 2nd Congressional District in the United States Congress. I want to offer my deepest gratitude to every one of you who have come here to bring attention to the important issues of homelessness and poverty in our community. I congratulate you for being here and for your willingness to put yourself in someone else's shoes for the night. I'm so honored that Neighbor to Neighbor and Plymouth UCC have brought the community together to sponsor this event and to inspire young people to become involved and passionate about addressing the homelessness and poverty epidemic in our communities. I'd like to personally thank you all for being here and extend my appreciation to everyone at Plymouth UCC for hosting the Drive-In Vigil and coordinating the virtual Sleepout this year. Your hard work and your dedication to helping others are inspirational, and I'm so very proud of the leadership that you've demonstrated for Fort Collins and our northern Colorado communities. This event is invaluable to the continued work of addressing homelessness, and it will positively impact many in our community. I would be remiss if I did not mention the present circumstances of the pandemic. We, as public servants, spend so much time telling everyone to follow our relevant public health protocols and to stay home if they can to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but we must acknowledge that those experiencing homelessness face unprecedented vulnerability. The COVID-19 pandemic presents a unique set of challenges for people to care for themselves and also abide by the state's prevention recommendations. The leadership displayed in our community and in the private sector must be followed by federal legislation. In April of this year, I unveiled new legislation to provide aid and economic relief to individuals experiencing homelessness throughout Colorado and across the country in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. I proposed an additional $11.3 billion in funding for emergency solution grants in new legislation. This funding could be used to purchase hotel or motel rooms for homeless individuals experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, provide hand-washing stations and hygiene products, and create federal medical stations to care for displaced persons throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. We must ensure that we provide the necessary resources and safe havens for these individuals so that they can stay healthy and get the care and shelter that they need if they contract the virus. In May, the House of Representatives passed the HEROES Act, comprehensive legislation that would provide almost $200 billion in additional funding for housing and homelessness programs. The HEROES Act seeks to support and protect families by creating a $100 billion emergency rental assistance fund, extending and expanding eviction moratoriums to all renters, and assisting people experiencing homelessness by, again, providing $11 billion for homeless assistance grants and about $1 billion in new Section 8 vouchers. We must pass the HEROES Act in the Senate in order to keep people experiencing homelessness out of the hospital and out of the harm's way that is so prevalent during this pandemic. More recently, I've joined my colleagues in urging HUD, the Treasury Department, and the Agriculture Department to take immediate steps to mitigate the impending wave of evictions and the rise in homelessness. A longer-term legislative solution will be critical to help Americans in crisis, but the administration also has executive authority to take immediate action now. For far too many individuals and families in Colorado, not having a safe place to call home during the COVID-19 outbreak means no place to wash hands regularly, no place to isolate away from the virus, and no place to recover from the illness if contracted. Now is the time for us to provide solutions and resources for this crisis. Now is the time for us to be a community who takes care of one another. In addition to passing the HEROES Act in the Senate, we need federal moratoriums issued immediately to mitigate the already growing wave of evictions and to prevent a gut-wrenching rise in homelessness. If there's anything in today's unprecedented moment and this crisis that I have learned, it is that if we work together, if we tap into the ingenuity and the services of everyone in our community, we can overcome our present challenges. And so again, I wish you continued success in the future with Neighbor to Neighbor and the Sleepout. And I send my heartfelt thanks to the church organizers, the community leaders, and all of you for your willingness to bring our community together. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and stay hopeful.
Hello everyone, my name is Katrina and I am a leader of the Sleepout committee for this year and also a veteran to the Sleepout. So I have slept out in December in a cardboard box before, so I know a little bit about how to set up your box and how to stay warm, although it will be challenging regardless of your preparation. So I have with me two different styles of boxes and I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about how to set up your box. So this first one is probably the most standard design, which is just we get a box from Lazy Boy, and we can help you get access to boxes as well. We usually run over and pick up a whole stack of boxes. So we just fold it into a triangle and then get little cutouts to be outdoors. So this one doesn't quite fit. I don't think it's the one that belongs to this box. But as you can see, we just have a little cutout. They would go in front of the door to keep it closed and kind of keep the wind out. This other style is a little bit more unusual. It just has little creases in here that fold down to make the box a little bit longer. This one's a little bit more challenging, so I would recommend you just stick with the triangle box, but really the engineering of your box is up to you. So overall, I would recommend bringing lots of layers. It's gonna be cold, it's gonna be probably windy, maybe a little bit hard to sleep, but remember that is part of the reason why we're doing this, to get kind of that empathy, that understanding of what it's like, the challenge of sleeping outside, especially in the winter. That is a reality for people experiencing homelessness. So just remember that, and hopefully you will stay warm. Thank you for sleeping out with us.